Everybody, and welcome to our podcast today. I'm really glad you could join us. Today, we're talking about how to elevate your business through software development. And with us today is one of those foremost experts on this topic, Ian Reynolds. Now, Ian is actually a partner and chief solutions architect at Zibtek, a software development consultancy focused on helping businesses build custom software. Now, they help growth companies, enterprises, and visionary firms solve their core business objective with agile software development. Now, Zibtek's mission is to focus value creation on the client's core business objectives. Now, Ian has spent the better part of his career in consulting and has served in diverse industries as finance, oil and gas, retail power, field services, midstream energy, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, transactional finance, mergers and acquisitions, restructuring e-commerce, retail and software development. So we've got a lot of experiences in a lot of cool areas that we're able to tap into. So, hey, Ian, welcome to the show today.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm really glad you could join us. So, I'm seeing a lot with technology disruption, especially with COVID-19, but how have you seen this? How have you really seen that technology has really disrupted this landscape that we're now seeing with business ownership?
Sure. The biggest immediate change we've seen has been that companies that have recognized they didn't have an online presence or didn't have a competitive enough online presence have moved very quickly, more out of necessity than sort of like, hey, we've just got to do this now. It's been pure necessity. And so the pace of change that we're seeing in terms of everything from e-commerce to having tools that allow teams to work remotely, digital learning, et cetera, are just accelerating.
And I imagine through COVID especially, because we're going to see a whole transition here between work in an office to work from home. And I'm seeing some staggering numbers of commercial space that's currently vacant and some massive companies. I saw one the other day spent like $65 million to get out of their lease. Can you imagine that, Ian? Spend $65 million to get out of your lease.
Right.
It goes to show. So what are you seeing with COVID-19 and how that's really affecting things as we move to more of a home-based environment?
Yeah, I think you're seeing a lot of the skill sets that people need to sort of partake in the digital economy really coming to a head, where if someone has a skills gap in their ability to use a computer to get their job done, they're actually becoming less valuable than someone who is sort of born with a phone in their hand, so to speak. And part of that change is also making software companies, entrepreneurs come up with new solutions to make tools that are effectively, they sort of already exist, but they're not simple enough. They're not intuitive enough for companies, users to consume, right? So let's talk about Zoom, for example, right? So Zoom isn't anything that's new. We've had Skype for forever, and it's been owned by Microsoft. But why during this downturn did Zoom just blow up, right? Why did it just explode? Why didn't Skype similarly explode? And there's a number of reasons for it, more than we could discuss here. But one of the primary reasons is it's super easy to use. It's very simple. Video conferencing, high quality, big buttons, not much complexity. That's it. And you didn't quite have that with versions of Skype. Microsoft's still not really sure where they're taking that product. Zoom, the objectives of the company are very, very clear. We are building video conferencing software. We're going to make it super easy to use. You click on a link, you're in the meeting, you're there.
Makes perfect sense. What other trends are you seeing that are happening, in the even globally when it comes to software as a result of COVID-19?
E-learning is really aggressively picking up. We're seeing that even a number of institutions around us that have formerly not online schooling are looking to get more into making their classes available online. So I think you're going to see a disruption of education, a continued disruption of education towards some of these online mediums. It's just more efficient for people not to drive across town or have everybody co-located in one spot to do a class that's otherwise a lecture, and maybe pre-record some of those things. So I think you're seeing that in education. We're certainly seeing it in an increase in the demand for platforms that allow educators, teachers, schools, universities, really specialized training programs facilitate learning in a way that is adaptive, in a way that we really sort of haven't seen an explosion of before.
What about types of software? I mean, when I look at any ICS codes, man, there's a lot of different, subcategories for software. So what are some of the most popular of these kind of software categories of different kind of software that's out there today?
Yeah, well, I can't speak to ICS codes, but in terms of popular categories where there's sort of emerging opportunities, marketing tech is still very much in its infancy. So you have a lot of companies figuring out a way to basically use the ad dollars that people are spending much more efficiently across these platforms, including Google and others. Google, while it makes up a huge percentage of ad spend, and Facebook makes up a huge percentage of ad spend, many of these other smaller platforms are much more efficient uses of spend. But you got to look at the performance of each channel and then dynamically serve your ads to folks in a way that is hyper efficient. And so I think we're going to see much more ad tech. We are seeing the real estate market is picking up, and we are seeing a lot of technology enter into the real estate market. You wouldn't think of it as something that's super sophisticated as it relates to technology, but both with low interest rates, really kind of the millennial generation looking to acquire homes, they're looking to use technology to do it. The lower interest rates are forcing these lenders to do much more volume because they're really not making as much off of a given loan. The spread is not what it used to be. And the trend there is really just get the underwriting done as quickly as possible. And the process takes much longer than you would otherwise think.
Open source technology, big data, automation. I see a lot. It feels like a lot's happening in those worlds. You're in those worlds. What do you see that's really happening advancement wise there?
Yeah, I think the automation play is just sort of a broader part of the broader software play. We're seeing it in sales and marketing so that folks can really automate the mundane portions of their day-to-day and make it so that it's easier for them to focus on quality as opposed to the quantity of outreach. You see a lot of automation tools that really kind of focus on increasing quantity. Well, you can do both, but really, if you can focus on quality, in all cases, really that's sort of what the internet is dictating. There's virtually unlimited competition on the internet, so quality is going to win out 9 times out of 10. And these automation tools are really just facilitating much better customer service, much better communication, eliminating the otherwise mundane tasks that sales and marketing team members have to do.
When it comes to software development, I mean, what is software development, from your standpoint? Like, what does it really offer? Like, what kind of stuff are you guys doing? When I hear that you can design custom software, then what do I think as an entrepreneur? Like, what should I be thinking about the possibilities of what could be done there?
Right. So I think I'll start with e-commerce as an example. So I have a friend who just acquired an e-commerce business, and that business has been in business for 10 years, hundreds of employees, otherwise healthy business. And right now, even right after acquiring the business, he didn't have a mechanism for taking online orders and having them be fulfilled automatically. People would go to the website and say, hey, I want to buy this. They'd call in and they would put that item basically in a cart on the side of the sales rep. And then they would take all the shipping information, take the billing information, and then they would ship it out and then put a tracking label on it manually somewhere in the warehouse. Well, all of those things, all of those steps are incremental components that can be automated, right? I can take the order automatically. I can use an order management system to have that item categorized in terms of like, hey, I've got 10 of these in inventory. Now I only have 9 because this order has been completed. It is shipping to this address. Billing information is automatically entered and paired to that order, dropped into my accounting system. And then all I have to do is in shipping and receiving, take it off of my shelf and put it out to be mailed out. And while that sounds like, wow, that's kind of what Amazon's doing. And yeah, but Amazon has spent billions of dollars to build the infrastructure to get that going, right? Whereas the vast majority of commerce that is occurring is small independent sellers. And that type of automation is available to them. And so custom software is a function of identifying what those problems are, figuring out what the lowest hanging fruit is and eliminating that process so that your team members are not, you're not eliminating, the idea is really not to eliminate jobs from people. That happens sometimes when we're building custom software, but really it is get those people doing something that's much more productive with their time and much more valuable ultimately to the organization, better customer service.
Ian, how do you know the right software? How do you kind of know if there's software that already fits for you out there, or if you kind of need something custom? And how do you even begin to get an idea of what can be customized and what can't?
Sure. We do diligence for all of our clients, and we require them to go through a period of review before we step into any engineering. And generally speaking, there's a lot of companies that are competitors to ours that are technology specific. They say we only build, Python, we only build JavaScript, we only build what have you. Well, we're large enough where we have the option to be technology agnostic. Now we are going to recommend, hey, here are the most common technologies that are going to be supported long term. But being technology agnostic and taking that approach to the market, we're able to say, we're going to do some evaluation and we're going to have internal team members compare solutions for your firm and then also look for off-the-shelf solutions and see if it makes sense to just integrate something that exists or customize something that exists for you. And if that's the case, let's do the cheapest, best long-term option that is going to be best for your business. Because if you can solve one problem, you're going to find there's 10 other problems you can solve. And those may also be solved with custom software. And that's where really the work is. It's not with that solving that sort of 80-20 Pareto problem. It's really everything after that. That is really where the cost is and much of the benefit as well.
What makes you guys different? I mean, a lot of people are listening to this going, man, I didn't even know you could really come up with creative, custom software. And I'm one of them. Like I'm a software company and I guess we create some of our own, but I don't really even think about there being custom solutions out there like that. I think it's brilliant. But a lot of people have been trying to figure out, well, how do I find the right source? So what separates you guys from your competitors, and how does somebody really know if you or whoever it may be is the right source for them to help with their project?
Sure. Yeah. And not everybody is the right client. I think that's a good point. We differentiate ourselves in that we do two things. We, one, spend a probably disproportionate amount of revenue on training. So project managers, product owners, they're in training once a week for a couple hours. Just has to be done. The developers and, sort of front end, back end, DevOps, QA, et cetera, network engineers, they're also in training for several hours each week, because no matter who you are, every 3 to 4 years, this industry is changing and you've got to be up to snuff with your engineering skill set. And if you're not, you're falling behind. And if you're not actively working on it, you're falling behind. So we spend a lot of time and put a lot of resources towards continuous education, and we do it within the firm. And it allows us to identify things that are trends, identify things that are bleeding edge, and make recommendations to our clients and say, hey, that's a really cool new technology, but you know what? It's unproven. Let's do this instead. And we know about that. And if we want to try that, we can try it in the future, but we don't want to, we'd rather build you a Toyota that you can get 300,000 miles on that engine before you need to try to get the Maserati that's got 700 horsepower. That's really the objective. And the result is you're going to have better outcomes. And that has been proven over our 10 years of helping companies basically build the future.
You guys have something called rapid software development. How does that work?
So rapid software development stems much from the idea of the lean startup, where you are not trying to solve every problem under the sun. I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of get in that trouble. A lot of businesses get in that trouble. They say, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. We really try to push our customers to define what their minimum viable product is and get that information on paper in a formal setting where we're basically creating user stories, we're building out sprints, we're defining the acceptance criteria that goes into basically getting that thing confirmed. And then we're trying to build the minimum thing that is going to get it in front of your customers where you can start getting feedback. A lot of people try to, again, build the moon for their customers, not realizing that after you get it in their hands, they're going to start sharing opinions and you're going to recognize they may have different needs. So we take that sort of lean startup approach, apply it to our Kanban style of development and sprint and agile methodology. We call it practical agile internally, and we then try to deploy that for our customers, and then also try to train them on that, right? Because most people who are building software don't come from a software arena.
Is it possible with what you guys do to take the functionality of everything that we need and put it into one software? Or is it typically creating multiple softwares to solve multiple different problems?
So a lot of the, I'd say, ideas that we build are folks say, hey, there's 5 different tools I'm using and I want to consolidate it into one that solves my problem. So I'd say a lot of the new builds are effectively ideas just like what you have articulated. So we can basically mold together or melt together these different sort of software ideas or components, and then build a leaner, faster software that's much more integrated. An example of something that we did for ourselves is if you go to tryourcourse.com, it's a sales automation software that has a bunch of other tools built in that you couldn't otherwise get sort of all as one package, right? With that idea being, look, all these things really do need to be integrated because a sales team member spends $500 per rep to get all of these tools available. Why not just have them in one place, right? So it's also a mechanism for us to demonstrate to our customers, like, no, we have this experience and it's something that we understand exceptionally well.
What problems do you guys solve? I mean, you have to, with custom software, there's going to be so many cool things that you guys are doing and problems you're solving out there. So what are some of the most common of the problems that you guys are seeing that you're creating software to solve?
I say actually the biggest problem that we solve is for clients' ambition, right? Everybody really want to build the next Facebook or the next Uber or something that's unmanageable and unruly. And so we really solve for real world problems. We're going to help our clients define what is the problem, what is the fundamental problem that you need to solve in your business or for your client's business. And let's focus on that first. And then from there, we're going to move into, hey, here's the fun features. Here's some expansion features. Here are some tools that could help you enter new markets.
What do you think, what kind of programs are needed to run these software? Can they run on anything, or do you need special, in Microsoft versus Apple, et cetera, to even be able to run them?
The vast majority of the software, I mean, we do everything from IoT. We had somebody mail us an oven on a pallet and do an app that can be managed, make sure you turn off the oven type thing. So we've done all of the sort of IoT devices, we've done headsets, VR, et cetera. But the vast majority of software that we build is moving towards the cloud, where as long as I have an internet connection and I have my phone or my computer, desktop computer, I'm able to access it by some web portal online. And most people think of this as, oh, you're building websites. Well, no, structurally, we're putting all of that on a cloud server so that we're typically not managing infrastructure. We do have, I think it's like 60 or 65% of our clients on AWS, and that's mainly by their choice. And then the other cloud platforms, Azure, Google Cloud, et cetera. DigitalOcean is another sort of cheaper competitor. And we deploy our solutions to these cloud systems with the idea that we can put all that horsepower on the cloud, and you really don't need to have your own infrastructure.
Pretty cool. Agile software philosophy. That's something I've seen from you guys too. And you touched upon it a little bit earlier, but I'd like to dive into that a little bit more. What is that?
So Agile is a method. It is not, there are many ways to skin the proverbial software cat. Agile is a method to take iterative feedback from the development process and move very, very quickly to pivot and respond to changes in the sort of real world environment, and then apply those to what you're doing in your business. So I'll give you an example of how that works. We have this CRM software that I told you about, and our clients are in a variety of fields, from sort of B2B distributors to, you have people in the real estate space, you have people in B2C commerce, and they're all using this tool. And everybody has a different opinion, like, oh, I wish the tool did this, wish the tool did this, wish the tool did this. Well, we could roadmap for 6-9 months about what it is that we think that the customer needs. And if let's say we get to the end of that roadmap, we want to be able to move quickly to take new feedback that applies to all three of those groups and get really urgent things that would immediately solve problems for most people up to the front of the queue so that we can add value to our clients much more quickly. And using Agile, we're able to basically measure and weight out all the work that we're doing, put a priority to it, break it into really small pieces that are measurable, and say, we're going to move this up in the queue, and we're going to solve this problem right away. And it's a way to basically have weighted delivery that gives us pretty immediate feedback, and we can take that immediate feedback and put it to work.
Do you find some ways are better to manage, maintain software than others? Do you see people neglect software and then it stops delivering the way they want it to? I mean, what can we do to take good care of the software per se that we have?
Yeah, the biggest problem we see is that people don't want to pay for QA and maintenance, and they build these gargantuan systems that basically outgrow the ability as a company to support it. And one of the most important things you can do is pay for QA. And the analogy we like to use is, if you've ever written a very large term paper or a thesis, you have to get that reviewed by certain people to check for grammar, check for logical errors, check for things that may be inconsistent, and professionalize the document. Well, engineers are people too, and they are in effect writing a thesis or a document that has never existed before in most cases. So you really have to have someone who has that critical eye as it relates to fixing some of these things, or simplifying what the engineer has written, or suggesting to the engineer, hey, you need to simplify this if you want to get an output that is maximally efficient. It's just the nature of the world and how it works. You're never going to find an engineer who's just going to write perfect code. You should find me an engineer who writes perfect code, and that'll be the closest thing to heaven that you're going to have here on Earth.
What about usage of software besides maintenance? I mean, how do you find that a business owner can maximize the use of the software? Because, man, I don't know about you, but I mean, I don't probably touch 20% of what most of the softwares that I use can actually do. And that has to frustrate you guys from creating it, because you guys create these things, do awesome things. And then like you said, we create like a Maserati, and then we're using it like a Pinto, right? Like we're to use it for like a fraction of what it could do. So how do we really tap in and get the maximum, use of the software that is created for us?
You have a lot of issues where companies deploy a feature, and that feature may not be used by more than 1 or 2% of the population ever of users, and it is then something that you have to support. And one of the ways that we help our customers get around that is by taking that MVP approach I talked about in the development of the core app, and then deploying that approach to the their software. And they basically say, like, hey, look, here's a really ugly page, but you know what? It has this functionality. Does this work for you? How much is it going to get used? And then from there, let's roll it out if adoption is what we expect it to be. Otherwise, you're dumping a bunch of money into a feature that, just as you said, you may never use.
What about the future of automation? What are you seeing there?
In terms of future automation, everybody's, the robots are taking our jobs, and no one's going to work. Well, automation is not going to cause mass layoffs. What's going to cause is much more efficiency, and it's going to let people focus on quality of delivery much more than it's going to let them spend time doing, again, as I said earlier, the mundane tasks. And we're going to see automation in much more of this task management space, I think, than we have seen previously. Right? Hey, your calendar is going to get much more advanced. Just let's take 2 examples. One, when you text people on your phone and people text you back, you get some of these pre-populated responses that let you say, hey, great, thanks, awesome, right? And they solve and smooth communication. Well, the fact of the matter is there's billions of people with the phone, and billions of people are now doing that. That is a crazy change in efficiency across the world that happened relatively overnight with the release of those features. Fantastic. Now, take that and apply a similar type of a small scale automation on your computer with things like Cortana, things like Siri, and have that do small tasks for you, and you're going to see a crazy amount of efficiency. And I think the gains that we're going to see in automation are going to come along this sort of stair-stepped approach, as opposed to, one day we're going to wake up and robots are going to be doing everything for us. This is not realistic. So I think you're going to see this incremental move towards smaller and smaller efficiency gains that you might even not notice until you sort of think about it.
What about AI? How do you think AI is going to change the efficiency with software from what we see in the future?
Yeah, AI is a long ways off, and I think it's right now a buzzword that a lot of people are using. AI as it currently exists is just linear algebra. They're using linear algebra to get to a limit that gets you close to a result, statistical result, and we haven't really seen tools that are hyper efficient at just kind of taking insane amounts of data and then giving a really clear output. They don't have tools that are really efficient at writing copy, for example, for marketing and advertisements. They have it in specific verticals like finance, where you're just basically taking in data and you need to report out what that data means. But outside of those industries, we really haven't developed natural language processing in a way that is sort of efficient enough to really provide fruitful interactions with people that I think are ultimately going to save a lot of time. So until I think this natural language processing develops much more beyond these really, really specified data sets, you're going to see just kind of that word tossed around, I think, more than it really should be.
Ian, it's been awesome having you on, man. I believe big time in software, custom software, automation. As an entrepreneur, time is so important. I think what you guys do is so important to give people back more time. Where can everybody go that's watching and listening to be able to learn more about you guys and what you're doing?
Yeah, best place to learn about us is the website, zibtek.com, zibtek.com. And then you can also email us at hello@zibtek.com, and I respond to that. And we're always interested in solving new problems and helping folks make a determination if they need to build something custom or just get something off the shelf.
Awesome. Ian, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, you bet, Ty. Thanks so much.
So everybody tuning in, make sure you go to zibtek.com. That's zibtek.com, zibtek.com. Look, this is so important. I mean, the bottom line is, as entrepreneurs, time is the most valuable asset we have. I actually believe in life in general, time is the most valuable asset you have. But when you run a business, that by far is. And the only way you get back more time is by doing what Ian's talked about today. You start working with software, creating software that can automate large swaths of these processes for you that you usually have taken on with manual efforts from you or your team. And believe it or not, there's a lot of stuff you're doing right now, the same thing every day, that's taking seconds, that's taking minutes, it's taking hours of you and your team's days, that could all be automated. And you could back in days, weeks, or months, get your money back and then have a really positive financial return on having those things automated as well as improve your efficiency, as well as improving your customer experience. So much of all of this happens with automation. And if you look at what the biggest companies on this planet are doing, they're using a lot of this automation that Ian's talking about and creating custom solutions like what Zibtek does to be able to make them operate at high levels of efficiency to be able to dominate the way they are. So if you want to dominate in your industry and market, make sure you visit zibtek.com, that's zibtek.com, to learn more about creating custom software for your business. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.